Good evening and welcome to the Eagles Nest podcast. Guys, welcome on. We're powered by the Sports Lounge Media. As always, I am your host, Sunshine. I also want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, the Mogul brand, as well as the Diamond Collection. Thank you guys for making sure that this show is always running optimally. And guys, we got a lot of news that came out in the NFL over the weekend. Specifically, in the NFC East, we're starting to get a better look at what the schedules are going to look like. Obviously, we have the schedule drop on Wednesday, but you know how the NFL is, and there's been a little bit of leakage in between now and there. So we know who the Eagles are going to be playing, week one in Philadelphia on ring night. We also know that the Saints are going through a bit of a hard time right now, and that's the topic I wanted to touch on because something that nobody's seen coming at the beginning of the day on Saturday was the retirement of Derek Carr. Outside of that, guys, we're also going to take a little bit of a look at the Dallas versus Eagles home opener. I'm interested to see. I think this is a huge game for both teams in terms of what they can prove. It also sets the tone early. So to start the session off, guys, I am just as surprised as every other NFL fan when I looked at my phone, right, and I seen ESPN saying Derek Carr was calling it a career. What in the world is happening in New Orleans? Guys, right now, New Orleans is in a bit of trouble. Okay, we look at what Derek Carr brought to New Orleans. He at least brought a veteran presence, a quarterback that had won in the National Football League. Was he excellent? Was he elite? No, but at least he was better than the rookies they currently have surrounding the team. Guys, if you look at the Saints right now with the departure of Derek Carr, I understand that Derek Carr wasn't all world, but guys, Tyler Show, Spencer Rattler, and the other cat that they have on the roster have a combined 7 NFL starts, and they are 0 of 7. They do not have a quarterback on the roster that has won an NFL football game. That's concerning to me, right? As if I'm a Saints fan, that's very concerning to me because the defense a year ago wasn't all that great. The offense was spotty at best. The one thing we heard from Saints fans was, "Don't worry, Derek Carr is going to be healthy next season. We'll have our receiving core that's going to be healthy." And now you don't even have Derek because he's on his way out. Oh, and by the way, he also leaves a giant financial hole, right? With the Saints. I think that at the end of the day, his departure, not only did it cost him $30 million, but the Saints are now going to be $14 million in dead money next season. And in 2026, they're $35 million in dead money. The Saints are in a world of trouble right now. I don't necessarily know what's going on down there. I know that with the Derek Carr situation, his shoulder, the surgery he had on his shoulder was regenerative and it didn't heal the way that he thought it was going to heal. So he felt it best to depart from the league as a whole. Obviously, Derek Carr was not this elite quarterback, but he was still a serviceable quarterback in the NFL, and we wish him well. At the end of the day, Saints fans right now have all the reason to panic. I think they're in a complete rebuild mode right now. I would not expect that much, and this as Eagles fans is kind of what we were telling Kellen Moore, right? We were like, hey, man, I don't know about that Saints job. It looks a little bit dicey right now, and now it's just gotten worse. So I kind of feel for Kellen. He's got his work cut out for him in New Orleans. We'll see what happens as the season transpires. Maybe Tyler Show really is that guy. Personally, I think they should have just took Shedeur Sanders there. He would have at least brought a winning experience. We'll see what happens with the Saints. Now we move on to the topic at hand and probably what has the Philadelphia Eagles nation so excited. We know exactly who we are getting opening night on ring night. And guys, to the people in the chat down south, Mogul, it could not be more poetic than Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott rolling up into the link and having to watch those banners fall and those rings go on players' fingers. Guys, it's poetic justice in my opinion. This is the only time in my opinion that Dak Prescott will ever see a banner fall. And it'll be in Philadelphia, where it doesn't take 30 years to get back to an NFC championship. But, at the end of the day, Dallas is going to do what they're going to do. I'm very excited for this one. Obviously, the Eagles fans are excited. The Eagles are excited to get rocking and rolling again. A lot of guys have already been hard back at work. A lot of dudes were already hard back at work after the parade. And now, you have Dallas rolling into Philly, right? This Dallas team that everybody hated on. Nobody thinks they have a shot because of what happened last season. They go 7-10. They finish, third in the division. And, bleak hope in Dallas right now. I think we can all agree. But, guys, look at Dallas a little bit closer, okay? Dak Prescott's going to be healthy. Okay, he's coming into Philly where he's currently 3-3 as a quarterback. So he struggles in Philly, but he's 6-1 at home, 9-4 versus the Eagles overall in his career. That has to mean something. Dak Prescott has a history of winning versus the Eagles. He's going to get his chance to come into Philly and spoil ring night. But at the end of the day, you got to look at this Dallas team as a whole. Like I said, they've had a lot of success versus the NFC East over the course of the last few years. Dak Prescott himself is 9-4. As a team, the series is currently actually tied. A fun fact, in case you guys didn't know, dating back all the way to 1983, we are currently 42-42. So the tie will be broken on September the 4th on a Thursday night in Philadelphia. It's just a matter of who does it. I think that when we look at Dallas has done a great job in the offseason filling some needs that they needed on the defense. They've done a great job adding some weaponry to their receiving room. It's a full receiving room now. You bring in George Pickens, you got CeeDee Lamb, you still have Jake Ferguson, who's a guy, and then you have Tolbert to throw into the mix there. I think that it's actually a decent receiving room now. And you have Dak Prescott, who is a great regular season quarterback. Biggest question mark for me in the Dallas Cowgirls is, what are they going to do in the running back room? Right now, you got two running backs. You bring in Jameis from Detroit, and then you draft, a young running back. Both of these guys are going to be vying for starting spots. Jaden Blue, I think he's going to be great in the NFL, but the question is, can he come in and be a day one contributor for the Dallas Cowboys? They really need that, right? This game is going to set the tone for the Dallas Cowboys season, and I think that, they roll into Philly with a brand new offensive coordinator. They've got some unproven guys in the running back room. The offensive line, I think, has gotten better. I'm very excited to see how Tyler Booker's game translates to the NFL. It's a big question mark right now in terms of, is he going to be able to have immediate success? He did a lot of that jawing in terms of Jalen Carter, and sometimes it's the old adage is be careful what you wish for because you might get it. I think Tyler Booker gets his welcome to the NFL moment in week 1 versus Baby Rhino, aka Jalen Carter. Very excited to see, defensively, I thought that, Dallas did some good things. You bring in Dante Fowler, from the Commanders. He's a good pass rusher. He can get after the quarterback. Interiorly, you re-sign Osa. The big question for me, Dallas was not very good against the run. They really weren't very good in anything on defense last season. And if they're going to be better and try to compete for that second place spot, like I have them in the NFC East, they're going to have to be better at stopping the run and just be better defensively as a whole. You bring back Trevon Diggs, who has a tendency to get hurt mid-season. You bring in a rookie corner. I think that Dallas has all of these, what ifs. Can they get it done? And they're coming into the Champs house on a Thursday evening, looking to play spoiler. Then on the flip side, Dallas has all this stuff to prove. You look on the flip side, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, right? You're coming off of a season in which you won the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl high, quote unquote, is a very real thing to a lot of people. So, Philly has plenty of answers that they need to, plenty of questions they need to answer. Are they going to be complacent, or are they going to come in and take care of business? Because we look at these two teams on paper, guys, the Philadelphia Eagles are more talented. We know that. But just because you have more talent doesn't always mean you're the best team. The best team wins on the field on Sundays or Thursdays. And I think that, we look at Philly, obviously offensively, I don't think we've lost anything that leads me to believe that we're not still going to be productive at running the football, right? You lose Mekhi Becton, he goes to the Chargers. But outside of that, I do believe that Tyler Steen can step in and be an immediate one guy. We just drafted a whole slew of brand new offensive linemen that are being taught by the best offensive line coach in football. So very excited to see what they can do with that. I think that they can come in and be immediate impact guys. I think that's Tyler Steen's job to lose. You still have AJ Brown, top 3 receiver in this league, and Devontae Smith, the top 10 receiver in this league. You just re-signed Dallas Goedert. The offense is going to look very similar, guys. Even with Kevin Patul running the ship, I think that we're going to see a very run-heavy offense that wants to beat you down and control the clock and throw the ball, strategically when they need to. The big question mark, I think, for the Philadelphia Eagles is, can they maintain the defensive success that they experienced a year ago? Last season, by week 4, when we had just gotten absolutely dropped by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa, nobody was calling us a super team. Then the defense was, in pieces. They had just dropped 33 points on us, over 400 yards. And nobody was looking at the Eagles saying, wow, this is a dominant defensive team. Over the course of the next 10 weeks, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles would come to become one of the most dominant defenses that year. Okay, we finished first in points allowed per game. And, and that really translated well into the playoffs. We didn't let teams score on us very often. And then that Super Bowl was probably the greatest defensive performance I've ever seen. But that's a lot of expectation to put on this group, right? This group is not that group. Now you have Zach Bond coming in with more experience. He's going to be the leader of that group. You depart Darius Slay, meaning that the secondary takes a little bit of a hit in terms of leadership. We know CJ DJ's on his way over in Houston. So the safety room is a big, giant question mark for the Philadelphia Eagles right now. In my opinion, we're going to have guys, right? Young guys step up and really come into their role. Quinion Mitchell is going to have to be that cornerback one over on the first boundary. He's going to be tested. Obviously, he performed very well last season, but he's going to have to do it more consistently. What do I always say? Especially in the conversations where people want to bring Jayden Daniels up as a top player in this league. Be consistent. We've only seen 1 year of Quinion Mitchell doing this, so I need to see him be more consistent. He is definitely going to get targeted more. Then you pan over to the other side of the boundary corner. There's nobody there right now. You got Keely Ringo, who has played sporadically, Eli Ricks, who hasn't played a lot, and you bring in Adoree Jackson from New York, who's a great tackler, but not all that great in coverage. So I think that boundary corner 2 spot is a giant question mark right now. I think it's Keely Ringo's job to lose. Then you bounce down to the nickel corner because that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles and Vic Fangio love to do. Cooper DeJean, that's his job. That's his spot. He's the most physical player in our secondary, and I think he has the coverage skills to really have that spot on lock, right? Then you go and you draft, the kid out of UCF, who I think is going to step into that role very nicely as a backup in the slot. We could also probably see him out on the boundary in rotation. The secondary is a giant question mark right now. Then you pop up to the safety room. You got Reed Blankenship, who is going to be leading that secondary. Okay, he's going to be the guy in that secondary that gets people together, has them all at his attention. On the other side, safety, with the departure of CJ Gardner-Johnson, now you have a big question mark. You have Andrew Mukuba as well as Sidney Brown fighting it out for that safety spot. I would like for us to obviously bring in Justin Reed or a veteran safety presence. That way we have a little bit more experience in that spot. But if not, I fully expect Andrew Mukuba to come in immediately and have day one reps. I think that he's very similar for Eagles fans to CJ Gardner-Johnson. Same body build, very physical, but I think he's a little bit better in coverage. Obviously, you guys know how well he performed at Texas in the SEC. So I think he steps in day one and has an immediate impact. But then, okay, we come up to the linebacker room. Now you got Jahad Campbell. Okay, he's the wild card. Jahad Campbell is going to get a lot of snaps at a lot of different places. He's going to have to learn a lot of different places. I fully expect him to play interiorly for the first year of his career. I think that he's going to play that inside linebacker position, learn it from Zach Bond, a guy that he quoted as somebody he looked up to. Fully expect Zach Bond to get him right in that interior spot, and then after that, I would love to see him bounce down on the edge and be a true edge rusher like he was at Alabama. But then, speaking of Zach Bond's now the leader of that defense as a whole, right? He's going to be commanding the defense, have all the faith in the world in Zach Bond. There's a reason we extended him. There's a reason he got paid. I fully, completely put all my trust in Zach Bond until he gives me a reason not to. All right. But Nakobe Dean is a big question mark. He's coming off of a knee injury. Is he going to be at 100%, right? He's going to now have Jahad Campbell vying for reps. You got Jermaine Trotter, who's still on the pine. That's going to be fighting for those reps as well, guys. These are all guys that are going to be, making that position very competitive. Now, I do think that Nakobe Dean comes back in and it's his job to lose, but there's a lot more talent at that position now. I don't necessarily know if I, quote unquote, feel safe if I was Nakobe. Obviously, all these guys are playing for contracts, but very excited for Nakobe to come back and contribute to the defense. Then you bounce down to the defensive line where I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles are extremely deep right now. Okay. Defense interiorly, you have Jordan Davis, Romo Jomo, as well as Jalen Carter, all of these big guys. You just add Ty Robinson from the draft, who I think is going to be absolutely incredible in a Vic Fangio system. I think you can play him at the shade. He can play the 3 tech, the 5 tech. Hell, I would line him up at the 8 outside of a tight end at this point. The kid's freakishly athletic. I think he will spend the majority of his time at the 3 technique and at like a 2-eye, maybe a 4. Excited to see what he can do in the NFL. But then, you add him to the lineup. Obviously, Jalen Carter's an all-pro type player. He's the leader of the defensive line. I'm very excited for him to start getting, better as he goes along. But, he's a first-team all-pro right now, guys. And he's arguably a top 5 interior defensive lineman in the league right now. So all the faith and confidence in the world in Jalen Carter. Hopefully, he will build on what was an incredible season last season. I thought Ojo Romeo also did a lot of great things interiorly. He's got a wicked first pass move, and he's going to run defense. Right, he eats up blocks and guards. Very excited for him as well. Then Jordan Davis doesn't get enough credit for what he does for the Philadelphia Eagles interiorly. He is a run stuffing machine. He is a immovable object, and he's kind of been adding a little bit of repertoire to his passing game. So something to look out for Jordan Davis expands his game with the Philadelphia Eagles. Then you kick out to edge, where a lot of people thought we were our weakest. A lot of people in the draft thought we were going to go edge. A lot of us Eagles fans that had been a little bit more up to date on the positions of need knew we would go, secondary or best available. But a lot of people thought we would go edge. It didn't happen because, excuse me, you look at all of the pieces that we brought in. Okay. You have Nolan Smith on one side, who just had an absolutely killer year that I think can add on it, right? That wasn't even, I wouldn't necessarily call that an elite year. It was a great year, but now he's going to be able to add on that and bring, more to the table there as a pass rusher. On the other end, the departure of Josh Sweat, that leaves a hole as a pass rusher, but you bring in Ojulari, you bring in Unche, you got all these different guys that are now going to be fighting for that spot. Jalen Hunt had an incredible playoff run. Those are three talented guys. I think people underestimate how talented Ojulari, Unche, and Hunt are. All of those guys are going to be in rotation. I think they can all be, 4, 5, 8 sack guys. If one of them were to get up in that 15, 12 range, I would consider that a great pickup. Excited to see those guys make some, strides on the defensive line. But in terms of the defensive line, I think we're pretty solid in terms of rotation. The defense is going to be very, very formidable. The question for the Philadelphia Eagles fans is, can they replicate success that they seen a year ago when they were the number one defense in the NFL? That's the big question mark, right? Coming into this week 1 matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. Because you got a team in Dallas, right, that, plays Philly very well specifically, plays the NFC East specifically. They got better. I have them coming in and competing for that second spot in the division. And I think that, with Dak at the helm, history tells us there's no reason for us not to believe that. And, what better for Dallas fans to come in on a Thursday night and just ruin the ring ceremony? It's a big question mark, but I'm excited to see what happens. In other news, there's a couple of other things that popped up. We know that we're getting the Chicago Bears on Black Friday, which would end up being a Friday game. I don't hate that at all. I think that that's really exciting as Eagles fans. We're going to get a lot of Thursday, Friday, Saturday games. Another leak came out that we would be playing the Washington Commanders in week 16 in Washington on December 20th, which happens to be a Saturday doubleheader. A lot of those type of things are going to be coming out over the next few days, guys. But as we sit here and we get ready for the schedule drop on Wednesday, which, by the way, the Sports Lounge Media, we'll be having a live watch party. So I better see all of you guys there because it's going to be a lot of fun. I understand that there's been a lot of leaks, but guys, nobody chops up football the way we chop up football. So come hang out with us, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, guys, in terms of the way things are looking, very excited for this opening night game. I will be in attendance for that game. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you see me there, come say what's up. I'm interested to see if Vic Fangio, Nick Sirianni, and Jalen Hurts, for that matter, can replicate success that we've seen a year ago, because we all know how difficult it is to go back-to-back in, let alone the NFC East. But we're talking about back-to-back Super Bowls where you still have teams that got better and Baltimore, Denver's on the rise, even in our own division, on our side of things. You got the Rams that are going to be a very formidable and dangerous team, guys. It's going to be a fun NFL year. Really, when you look at it, there's no team that just stands out and you say, those are the guys that got it, right? There's 3 or 4 teams on both sides that I think can be very competitive. Obviously, the Eagles are a favorite, but I'm not one of those guys that's going to sit here and tell you, oh, we're going back to back. It's going to happen. I need to see what we look like. Right? Yeah, a whole year of rust. I need to see what we look like when we come on the field and play for our first game. I know that, the Eagles historically come out a little bit sloppy, so hopefully we can get that cleaned up, run the football well, and Jalen has an accurate night. But guys, I want to come on here and say thank you so much for joining me tonight at 7 o'clock on the Eagles Nest. I appreciate everyone. Apologies for the late start. Had a little bit of technical difficulties, but again, thank you for your support, man, and thank you for supporting the Sports Lounge Media, the best place to get any sports information, whether that's the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, or the MLB. This is your one-stop shop, guys. Check it out. I can't be more happy to lock arms with some of these guys that you see on here. We got our fantasy guy with the Marshall experience. We got Down South, who also covers the Eagles a little bit. He'll also be covering fourth and one, which is our version of Red Zone. Guys, there's a lot of big things coming with the Sports Lounge, and with this schedule drop only makes it more exciting. But I want to say thank you to everyone who came out tonight, man. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking football with you guys. You guys are what makes this fun. I will see you guys on Friday for my second show, where we will have on a few guests to talk about what all is going to be going on in the NFL world. But for now, guys, have an incredible rest of your night. And as always, go Birds.